Hello, my name is Heather Clemens. I am the marketing consultant for the United Way of the Mark Twain area. The United Way Evening of Philanthropy is May 9th. It began in 2019 with a goal to honor community members who invest their time and talents in making our community better. The Evening of Philanthropy shares the stories of generous people who we hope inspire others. This podcast will feature interviews with the honorees who will be highlighted at this year's event. So my guest for this podcast is Donna Brown. She is the lifelong philanthropist for 2025. Donna is currently the office manager for Mount Olivet Cemetery, but she is also a retired Palmyra High School English teacher. For the past 20 years, Donna has taught GED and high-set classes to help hundreds of community members receive their high school equivalency diploma. For the past 10 years, Donna has been teaching these classes independently without any compensation and has built partnerships to ensure the program is available to community members in need. And we will be discussing that program more with Donna in our first question. So I should also probably mention, as an aside, that Donna has known me since birth.
My daughter by another mother.
She has been there for me during every phase of my life. So if you see a level of familiarity in this podcast, that's going to be why. So let's get started with that first question. Can you tell me a little bit more about the GED program and the high-set classes?
Well, let me tell you how I got started.
Okay.
I fought it at first. Joe Pettit, God bless him. Joe Pettit got me started. He was very insistent that he thought that I would be good working with, students wanting to get their high school equivalency. And I guess I just didn't want to have my feet mired down to a certain time every week. And, but I fought it. And finally, I decided to go check it out. And I ended up in a situation where Dura had just closed their doors and were in the process of it, and they did it over a 2-year span. Well, people who live in Hannibal and are of the age I am will know that Dura started out as RevCon during 1960s and the Vietnam War. And a lot of young people dropped out of high school in their junior and senior years to go to work for Dura or RevCon because they good benefits, good salaries, and it was a career that they could make out of it. And I walked into that GED classroom down at the Career Center, and there sat 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, let's dabble in a couple of 70-year-olds who never, ever thought that they would ever be without a job. And they weren't, the 40, 50-year-olds weren't of an age to even think about retiring yet. And they couldn't get a job in Hannibal or the surrounding area because all jobs then required that you had to have your high school equivalency. So anyway, I spent a couple of days down there, and finally on the third day I was down there, I walked into the room where there were probably 30 people. They had all carried in food and they were enjoying themselves. And I said, guys, what are we doing? What? And they were very blunt. They just said, how can we learn if we don't know what the books are talking about?
Right.
And that used to be the method, that you were tested, then you were given a book to study, and your progress was measured that way. There was actually no teaching. So I approached Joe Pettit, and I talked to the people, and I said, if I opened up, and I got permission from Mike Pipkin at Hannibal Housing Authority, that I could open up my classroom out there, would you come? And they all said yes. So the very first day I opened my doors at the Shirley Bomar Center, there were 45 people showed up.
Wow.
And that first group, all but one passed it. And then I had another 45 and then another 40. That went on for 2 years. And it's so rewarding to see people who thought they never could actually succeed in doing it. And then, to be quite honest with you, a lot of those people went on to work for Harris Corporation in Quincy. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them went on to, they were young enough that they went on to a vocational school, became electrical, I guess a smaller version of an electrical engineer, and went out and started their own businesses.
Wow.
That is what got me hooked. And since then, I've had over 400 students be successful from all walks of life. And that's how it got started. And then, I worked first through the Hannibal Public School System. And then it just got to the point where the expense of it all, the school system had to drop. It's because, after all, their priority should and always should be students, not the adults.
Right.
But then I didn't know what to do. So I sat down with Gary, who ought to be sitting here right by me, because I'm going to try to say this without crying. He has stood beside me through everything. Financially supported everything that we do, because it takes paper and pencils and ink for the printer and a printer, but it also takes toilet paper and paper towels, and and we always fed them. We would always make runs to the grocery store to get cookies and coffee and things like that I could have there for them to have for treats and all. And he has always been by my side. But the other people in my life that made the biggest difference was Mary Jane Gregory. I don't know if people remember Mary Jane. She and her husband Homer owned Griffin's Floral. She found out that Gary and I were financing this program on our own. And God bless her, Mary Jane was a very social person, and she belonged to a lot of women's organizations and groups. And single-handedly, she got, several PEO groups. She got, and talked to them about me, and then I would go speak to them, and then they would started supporting me. And then that's what helped buy the things, the textbooks. First Christian Church, who's being honored tonight, Gary and I belonged there, and we had a committee called Caring and Sharing. And they bought textbooks and the irony of it all, I put at the bottom of that textbook that, First Christian, we will be praying for you and hope your walk in life becomes successful. Those textbooks are like brand new. The people took care of them. It's just little things like that. But I'd have people walk up to me in Walmart and hand me money. I have people who had graduated with that very first class start handing me $25, or I would be Amazoned boxes of pencils. All of a sudden there'd be an Amazon box on my, front porch, and it would be toilet paper or paper or whatever. So I'm sitting here as an example of United Way. I didn't do this all by myself. I have a community of people behind me. I have an 80-year-old, I would say she's probably in her 90s now, who went to every yard sale and picked up 3-ring binders, because she knew that I bought 3-ring binders and calculators and things for my students so that they had what they needed to study with. So I can't, I'm being honored, but it truly is a community that has stood behind me, saw the need, and I hope and pray that I never let them down, because their support is why I'm being honored tonight. That's what makes it so humbling, very humbling.
Well, it definitely takes a community, for sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Oh, yeah, definite. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So that's going to lead us into into our second question I'm going to ask you
Okay.
is that community involvement means different things to different people. What does community involvement mean to you?
Well, to me, everybody, if you see a need, I was raised that you need to find a way to fill that need.
Mm-hmm.
You may not be the lead person, but find a way that you can help others meet that need. And that's what I was blessed with. Education has always been my niche. You know, I'm 72 years old, and for 50 years of that 72 years, I've been in a classroom. So I have tried, when my students come to me and I realize that there's more going on with their life than just the lack of an education, I would call the powers that be. And Denise Amron was usually one of the ones I'd call. I'd call Douglas Community Center. I'd call NECAC. I'd call Hannibal Housing Authority. You know, if somebody was homeless, or if somebody was having trouble making ends meet, you know, because of utility bills and things like that. I've worked with the Board of Public Works. That, to me, is community involvement. Someone is not homeless because that's what they want to be.
Right.
There are other things that are in play. And when you take the time to get to know the person and they learn and get to know that you are there for them as a person, then they'll open up. And as they open up, then you need to listen.
Yeah.
Not with your preconceived notions, but actually try to meet the people where they are. And to me, that is community.
Yeah. So people can choose to do anything with their time and talents. People may choose very different ways to give back to their communities. What is your why as to the programs that you support and that you're working in?
Okay, now you're going to get to meet Paul Loy, my daddy. My dad raised me with the idea that only by the grace of God, there go I. And for that reason, and my Christian background, there were no qualifiers that Jesus put on anybody. And so when Dad always said that, I heard him and I knew what he meant. And to me, I have to try to help people because, you know, we all know there were times in our lives when we were one paycheck away from financial disaster. I mean, we've lived that life, and my mom and dad, Daddy was standing on a soapbox, literally soapbox, not standing on a soapbox, but a literal soapbox. He stood behind a soapbox in Mound City, Missouri during World War I at the age of 8. Wow. And Dad barbered until he was in his 70s. And then Mom, she didn't finish high school. So to them, education was very important, very important. So, you know, that's how I got my start. That's my impetus, is to make sure that I give back.
Yeah. So speaking of giving back, what does generosity mean to you?
Generosity has nothing to do with money. I'm just going to say that up front. It has nothing to do with money. Generosity to me is giving of yourself. It's being kind. It's never meeting a stranger. It's having empathy, not sympathy.
Right, right.
Sympathy has its place, but empathy, seeing people, listening to them, that's generosity. That's giving of yourself. Gary and I have never, ever had a lot of money. Yet, I still believe that he and I have a lot to give. And so I think that any of my GED students, any of my Palmyra High School students, I hope and pray that they remember me more for the encouragement I gave them, for the always having their backs when they needed it, and for being their coach. And, you know, more than the book learning.
Right, right.
You know? But that's, to me, what generosity is.
And who inspires you?
Okay. Who inspired me? A single father of a toddler who would get up at 5 in the morning and go out to Sunrise, I believe, trucking, and clean out the inside of milk trucks. Then watch his watch, and they'd let him come in and come to class. And then he would come to class, study hard, and then turn around and go back and finish his job. That's encouragement. A single mother of 3, homeless, living in her van, yet she was at class every day. And she was helped out by Head Start for her youngest, and the others were old enough to take care of themselves. And she was, she made it. Now she's, can go on with her nursing career. I had a lady in Bowling Green who married a gentleman there. She was a doctor of psychology in Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
But the United States would not recognize her credentials because the college classes, the things they did. And we, as a country, required her to start from scratch, which was at the high school. So she drove from Bowling Green, and she has now successfully gotten her degree and is back being a doctor of psychology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Those are the people that inspire me. There was a lady who worked for a company here in town since she was 16. And then when she was in her 50s, that company sold out, and the company that bought required all the employees to have their GED. God bless her.
Yeah.
She had to confess, I don't have my GED. And they gave her 3 months to get it. They would hold her job for 3 months, And she came, and she worked so hard, and she got it. But, that was demoralizing, having to confess to her coworkers and everyone else that she didn't have it. But yet then to have to come back and go to school. But, that inspires me. People who want something so badly and the sacrifices that they have to make. I worked with Rachel Bringer. She asked me if I would accept parolees, and because she did not allow people to get off parole until they got their GED. And so I did, and I worked with several people who had been in prison and saw, the toughest people to work with were young people who had just dropped out of high school. Those 17, 18, 19, year olds, they haven't experienced enough life yet to realize how important it is to get it. So, the people that came in at an older age had fought that good fight of trying to get a job and trying to make the best and do. So, yeah. I think I'm rambling.
No, it's great. No, the situations and the people would definitely be inspiring.
Yeah. They're the story, not me.
Yeah,
they're the story.
Yeah, they would definitely be inspiring. So, I'm gonna close us out by saying thank you for your time today. But I also want to know if there are any other parting thoughts that you want to put out there before we end the podcast.
No, other than I just want everybody to know that my husband, my family, and people at the the ladies at the Alaska Methodist Church, they would give me money. And Prince Avenue Baptist Church took up a collection in Sunday school, and they gave me money. I will never forget those people. Never. And they provided for these people to become better parents, better workers, better, and just better themselves because they got that feeling. So it's not me. It's all these people in the United Way that have helped with this GED program, and I so appreciate it. That's the biggest thing I want to say, my appreciation, and I'm honored to be recognized, but please, it's not just me.
Well, it definitely takes a community.
Yes.
For sure.
100%.
For sure. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
For talking with me today.
It was really tough, Heather.